Welcome back to the Up and the Blue Seats podcast from the New York Post. We're 2 games in, and I'd like to say we've got the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Rangers through the first 2 games of the 2024-25 season. Welcoming in our co-hosts, Larry Brooks, the great Larry Brooks, and former Ranger Brian Boyle. Welcome in, guys. We got an eventful 2 first games. We've got a 6-0 shutout against the Penguins for the season opener and a 6-5 overtime thriller in the first ever meeting with the Utah Hockey Club. What are the thoughts on the first 2 games on the season?
That Dylan Guenther can shoot a puck. I'm sorry. I was like, he signed that contract. I'm like, what? And now I'm like, he's the best shot in the league. That was wild. We'll get into it. We'll get into Utah. They demoralized Pittsburgh, and I was like really worried about Pittsburgh after that because there's still some close ties there for me, and I'm like, what are they gonna? And then Pittsburgh bounced back, so it was a good win for them. There were, a lot of questions that we had talked about before the opener with, who's going to play on D? What are they going to do? There's a lot of optimism. There should be for Mancini, I think, with what they've got. They have some, this time of year, you're going to experiment with different lines. I don't, from game 1 to game 2, you only played 3 lines in the second game. So I don't think that's really the recipe for game 2 of the season, but you see some wild games in October. You always will. Things that you can bet on or hope to happen. Usually, it never sort of goes that way. It's like an extension of the preseason in a sense, until you kind of get, to be a well-oiled machine. I guess you could say there's going to be some box scores that you look at and kind of scratch your head. And it doesn't alarm me in any way. If I'm a fan of the Rangers, I just think that's what you're going to get. And it's just gathering information now for the coaching staff.
Yeah. Well, I think to your point about the Penguins, I think their victory over Detroit in the Red Wings home opener the following night was a shocker to me. Just shocking. You figure here's Detroit that's primed. They have to make the playoffs this year. You talk about the Rangers cup or bust. If Detroit can't make the playoffs, I think their whole management's going to be out. So, they're sitting there and they're rested, waiting for a Penguins team that was demolished. And Pittsburgh came in and they were, the kind of Penguins, so to that point, I was shocked. I was watching a lot of the game. I was shocked. I don't think there's really any form in the early season. Jumping off of what you said, you look at the early season schedule and, we've got these teams that didn't make the playoffs last year, so it's a soft schedule. Well, you have no idea what the 2024-25 team is going to be. So there's no form. I thought they played very, very well for the final 50 minutes in Pittsburgh against a team that was demoralized and beaten. And against Utah, the Rangers have had trouble against quick, fast teams for years. The Rangers like to think of themselves as a fast team, but when you watch other teams, now they can play fast, they move the puck fast, but sheer speed, they don't quite measure up to Utah. I don't know how many teams do. So it was a scrambly game from the start. I thought the Rangers' neutral zone defense was invisible. I thought they just seeded the zone, and Utah had grade A opportunities almost every time in the zone. Rangers did battle back. I agree. I didn't like at all going down to 3 lines. There was an excuse. There was an excuse when Edstrom was ejected from the game, so they were going to have to move players around. But I asked actually Peter Laviolette at Sunday morning's practice if it were, if once Edstrom went out, had he decided that he was going to go 3 lines, or was it just the flow of the game? And he said it was the flow of the game. We're chasing all the way. We're chasing all the way. And I've got 60, 70, 80, 90 point players on my bench, and I have to think about that. I understand that. But if that's going to be the MO every time they're behind in the third period, then I don't see what they're doing with they're not building their fourth line. And I've talked about this forever, that this season has to be about being as strong as you can be going into the playoffs. And I think that every step they take has to align with that. And look, it was the second game of the season. It was a wild, chaotic game. It was a game out of the 80s. It just was. So I'm not going to read too much into it, but I would like to see the fourth line get a regular shot.
Yeah, I think there was a lot to like in the first game. Every single line scores. They demoralized a team that they were supposed to do that to. It's a very, no, don't take any offense, Brian, an inferior Penguins team. An inferior Penguins team. I think that was what they were supposed to do in their season opener. And Igor Shesterkin pitches a shutout after declining a contract that was going to make him the highest paid goalie in NHL history. That was an absolute boss move on his part. Not that he faced a lot of action, but it was a good first step for him to start this season for sure. And I agree with a lot of what you guys said about the Utah game. It was interesting in the sense that I feel like the Rangers are usually the agents of chaos. I feel like, the way that fourth line has operated in the past and even the whole lineup from up and down, they're the comeback kids in that way. They can turn a game upside down, but it felt like Utah was really fostering the chaos and thriving in the disorder there. And the Rangers, like Pierre Laviolette said, were just chasing and chasing and chasing. And the defensive miscues were pretty glaring. But I mean, Larry, we've talked about this. It could possibly be a byproduct of 3 brand new D pairs to start the season.
Could be. I think there were individual breakdowns that may or may not have happened anyway, but it's a different look for them. And as I wrote for Sunday after the game Saturday night, their back end has been the most stable back end in the NHL over the last 4 years. The Lindgren, Fox, and Miller Trouba combinations have 2 of the 4 pairs with the most ice time. So they've just rolled and rolled and rolled. And now I think, changing it does probably have an impact. I like the way they have constructed it, though, because they are allowing Mancini to be in his strong position. Mm-hmm. And we talked about this last week. I thought it was going to be tough for him if he was, playing on his offside. If Braden Schneider can do it, and Laviolette has been very, his words have been very encouraging about what he sees from Braden Schneider on that side. And I think, if the Fox Miller, if Fox Miller, if those top 4 can remain together, then it allows Mancini to be where he is. And I think there's going to be a lineup decision, assuming everyone else is healthy, when Ryan Lindgren comes back. And I can envision Lindgren then sliding in to Mancini's left, and you have a kind of a physical third pair where Mancini maybe is released a little bit to be more on the other end. So I like the fact that they're doing this now. Mm-hmm. Because maybe this is their ceiling. So we'll see.
Well, if Igor keeps turning down these big dollars, I think their back end's going to get a little thinner. So this is a hard cap. That's interesting. We brought it up, and I think we could get to it allegedly. But yeah, no, I mean there's going to be some changes. Yeah, I guess it's true. Anyways, there's going to be changes every year in a hard cap. So this is, and we talked about it, and we've talked about it quite a bit, but this is essentially the same team, which is why the chaos, even early in the year, surprised me a little bit. But this Utah team, a lot of really smart hockey people are picking them to make the playoffs in the West. So, don't overlook them. They have skill. Obviously, they want to be a structured team, Utah, but they have this like dynamic skill set with certain players, like these water bugs are on the ice that are hard to sort of play structurally around. They kind of go rogue a little bit. And I remember when the Maple Leafs were just starting with their, the Marner, Matthews, Nylander group that came in, like they could lose by a touchdown or they could win by a touchdown because they kind of just were riverboat gamblers a little bit. And I always remembered playing against that. It was just so difficult because you're where you're supposed to be, but they're not where they're supposed to be. And you just are like, what happened? And then they're such good skaters and so offensively gifted that they're by it. But so that happens. You want to dictate the terms of the game if you can. It can be hard sometimes, but I don't know. It's exciting in October. So you get a point, you get your money's worth. Certainly a lot of entertainment. I, for the life of me, have no idea how Will Cooley gets a goalie interference call.
Honestly,
the save the kid made, even though it wouldn't have counted, was insane. Ingram gets blown up and then kicks his pad out. That was pretty sick. Yeah, I mean the first one, that's the rule. Goalie can't play his position. He's in the blue paint. As much as I hate it, I think that's the right call on Rempe. But that one was, that's embarrassing for the Stripes. Sorry, boys. We all love the refs here, but that's missed.
Yeah, both of them definitely had an impact. Both goalie interference calls obviously had an impact on the game. So could understand why the Rangers felt like they probably got the short end of the officiating stick in that one. But when you give up 5 goals in regulation, the fact that they were able to tie it up in the third period and at least get a point, obviously very encouraging. And I agreed with their assessment that they did tighten it up a little bit defensively in the third period. Wasn't giving up as much as they did through the first 40 minutes. But I think that was a very winnable game for them, for sure. And I think it should serve as a learning experience for this Rangers team going forward.
Yeah, almost every chance was a grade A chance. It was. As Laviolette said, it wasn't really the volume; it was the noise. And Shesterkin surrendered 5 goals on 14 shots, the first 14 shots, and maybe one, but they were just such glorious opportunities. Facing great shooters. So I don't think anybody looked at Igor and said, well, 5 and 14, this is a bad game for him. He was doing everything he could, to stop it at 5, and he did. And yeah, they did tighten up a little bit. They were a good team. They were a dangerous team last year, but I think also, we're spending a lot of time on Utah, that's for sure. But I think also they also have this energy now.
Yeah,
they come from a place where there was instability. They never really knew quite where they were going to be the next year. They're playing in a college rank, and now they're first class. And so I think that adds to them certainly at the start of the year. Whether they can ride that emotion, combine that with their talent, and be a factor. We'll see, but I think they're going to be a very dangerous team, at least in the short run.
It was a nightmare. They hated. They did. That was a nightmare.
Right.
The whole Tempe thing, it shows you now. It's a hard league, no matter what. Under the best circumstances, when you're pampered and treated like, just like royalty, when you're on these teams, it's almost unheard of to hear what they had to go through last year. And we're spoiled where we complain way more than we should as athletes. It's sort of embarrassing, but the pressure is so high to perform. So when you don't have like a decent enough hotel, or your team's not even paying the bills at these hotels, you're like, what are we even doing here? So a lot of they're an exciting team. I guess we are spending too much time on Utah, but exciting game.
Let's swing it back to who was on the receiving end
When they get a
those
nickname,
Utah
we can talk.
shots.
When they get a nickname, we can talk about them again.
I mean, 16, what is it, 16 goals in 3 games? We had to give them a little bit of airtime. But let's segue back to the Rangers and let's go to the guy in net. Let's open that up. Day before opening night, Kevin Weeks breaks that Igor Shesterkin declined an 8-year, $11 million per deal for a total of $88 million, would have made him the highest paid goalie in NHL history by a considerable margin, $500,000 after Carey Price's $10.5 million cap hit. And he says no. Igor Shesterkin is taking a leap of faith, thinks he's a $12 million goalie, thinks he deserves to be the highest paid guy on the team. And it's a very fair argument, 100%. And I mean, I know that after the leak had happened, Igor's camp was really not happy with how that came about. Obviously, a matter of public perception at that moment in time. Not the best type of situation for Igor for that to get out there. But I mean, if you look at this situation unbiasedly, you see both sides. Both sides didn't do anything wrong. Rangers had a right to make that offer, and Igor had a right to decline that offer. So, Larry, I'm curious where you see this going from here, though.
Well, I think it's clear that he thinks he deserves to be the highest paid player on the team, and I don't think there's an argument against that. I don't think because he's a goalie, you say, yeah, you're the most important player on the team, you're the best player on the team, but we can't pay you because you're a goalie. So I think his argument is valid. And I also think the Rangers are being quite reasonable here. They're offering the largest contract in history to a goaltender. So where I think this goes is I think what the Rangers should do is offer him $12 million. I think it's important to him, and I think it's justifiable. I would make that offer, and if he rejects it, I'm not, I don't know the timing, whether they should go back now, whether they should wait a few months, but at some point, I think the next move comes from the Rangers, and you're offering 12. If he turns it down, you play out the season. You just play out the season. You don't, this is about this year. They have their franchise goalie under contract, and under contract at a pretty club-friendly number too. So you just play it out. You play it out the way the Yankees played out this season with Juan Soto. There was not a lot of noise about Juan Soto that, he's going to leave, he's going to leave, he's going to leave. They just played it out. They played it out with Aaron Judge in 2022, and this is a part of pro sports. And if at the end of the day, I think at some point it is on Shesterkin also to say, listen, I want to be here. Find a way to his agents. I want to be here. Find a way to make it work. I want to be here. They want me. I want them. Let's figure it out. And I do think the number is 12 for me. Now, if Shesterkin thinks the number is 12.6, no, I'm not so sure that the Rangers can go that far. Honestly, because it's a cap league. So that's where I see it going at some point.
Who are they without him?
That's the thing. That's the
question. How many holes can you fill with that money, or is it worth spending on him? So I think they want to. I think if Igor's mad that the report got out, he should talk to his agent about that, because I don't think that came. I think, Larry, you wrote that you couldn't.
Yeah, I don't think it
come
came
from the team either. There's no way.
No. First of all, it has never been Chris Drury's style. Never. I've known him for 20 years. It has never been his style. Secondly, it does not benefit the Rangers in any shape or form at any point, but certainly not on the eve of the season opener. So I don't know where it came from. There's a lot of speculation. I always laugh because I know when I have stories, people are guessing about the sources, and generally they couldn't be farther off base. So, but I'm pretty confident that it did not come from the Rangers or Chris Drury.
But yeah, so there you go. I mean, and I agree with you. So, having said that, I heard last year that was going to be his ask, right at 12. I think that's what
Yeah.
Yep.
was told to me by several different people.
Yeah, I think
And
we all heard that
Yeah.
like almost
I reported it
within
on
48
June
hours
2nd.
after they were
Yeah.
eliminated. That was the number that was coming
Yeah.
out.
yeah, so I mean, it's look, he's going to play 60 games. Why do you give 60 games? Well, okay, he's going to be in net for every 16 win, every one of the 16 wins they would get if they could win the Stanley Cup, and without him, they're not there. So, if you want to talk from a business side, I think the gates that you're going to get throughout that playoff run will more than cover Igor's contract and that of the rest of the team. You can't replace you can't replace that with different defense, different
You have to
forward. You just
reconstruct the
can't.
whole team.
No.
You have to
And you know
reconstruct
why?
everything.
He's
And
their
you know what?
foundation.
And you know what? That's why, if we're talking about 12, if we're talking about 12-2, if we're talking about 11-9, that's why it is so important for Victor Mancini to be a player. So they have an entry level player. That's why it's so important for Adam Edstrom to become a player. It's important for Gabe Perreault to become a player. They have to be able to balance. They have to be able to balance the gargantuan contract with entry level, and that's always been a formula. But it is vital for the Rangers if they're going to go this way, because we know we have Adam Fox at a certain number. We have Mika Zibanejad at a certain number. We have Vincent Trocheck at a certain number. Now Panarin is only has 1 year to go after this, but don't you think they're going to want to re-sign Panarin? It's not going to get 11, 8, I don't think, or 11-6, but.
What if he keeps getting?
What do they?
hurt?
What do they? And they, then they have to reserve the 7 to 8-5 or 7-5 to 8-5 for Lafreniere, and so they have to have entry level guys, and that's another reason I'm talking about this playoffs, because that's what this year is about. But the more they can develop their younger players now, then they're ahead. When they have to start shedding big contracts.
I mean, you got to think about how much money Lafreniere could command if he keeps going at this rate.
Yeah.
Get him done. Get him done as fast as you can.
Yeah. I mean, let's look at the guys. Let's look at some of the new guys and some of the guys that you guys were talking about. Mancini, Carrick, Smith, any of these guys, Edstrom too. Any of these guys sticking out to you through the first two?
I mean, it's hard to. They're going to shelter. Actually, they're kind of sheltering. I mean, more Carrick again. There were circumstantial reasons, I guess, because of how the whole game played out against Utah. Mancini might get sheltered more and more. We'll see what happens if they go on the road for a stretch to see kind of how he's utilized, and then when they're healthy. But like to Larry's point, you need that. This is the time to do it. Give it to him where there's nothing on the line. It's not preseason. They're obviously still kind of. I mean, Edstrom's still auditioning. You have to earn that trust, and it doesn't happen in a few games or a camp. Or I know he's been there. He had a taste last year, but man, let him fail a little bit would be my philosophy on it. And I know that's really hard to do in a city like New York. With expectations where they're at. But if you're Peter Laviolette and you have a good relationship with management and you understand certain things, you need points, you need wins now. 2 points now is the same as 2 points in April. Don't just pull the plug on him like that's. And I don't think Lavi's going to do that. I think he understands, and he's been around long enough that this year and going forward, for his job security, these guys need to perform. So give him the best chance to do that.
Yeah, I think Mancini certainly has been the standout of the new guys. Carrick showed a real edge. I mean, when we saw, I think what we saw from Sam Carrick Saturday night against Utah is Sam Carrick. He's an edgy guy. He's gonna mix it up anytime he can. I think he's fine there. Reilly Smith, I think, we really don't know. I think first couple of games, Mika hasn't quite gotten to his game. I think Chris Kreider has been exceptional. Been one of their probably 2 or 3 best forwards, if not their best. But I don't think Mika's found another gear yet, and so Reilly Smith to me has been sort of on the fringes of the game. He's trying to get into it. He's on the second power play that hasn't quite gotten enough time and hasn't quite worked yet. It's an entire new unit. They've got the with Kakko is now playing the net front on the second power play. Keandre Miller is now the back end. So I think Reilly Smith is trying to find his way through these first 2 games.
Yeah, Mika's got 1 shot on goal, I think, through the first 2 games, and it's early, but I think that's definitely played a part in maybe that top line not being as effective as a unit together. But I agree. I think Chris has gotten off to a really, really strong start, and I'd even say, I mean, I know it's in technicality the second line, but obviously it's not. But Panarin, Lafreniere, Trocheck haven't missed a beat, have picked up right where they left off. And I think that Cooley, Hedl, Kakko line has also been pretty strong through the first 2 games, just in terms of how much they've created. Poor Capo Kakko can't buy a goal if he put all $2.4 million he signed for on the ice this offseason. So
I think Will Cooley has been terrific. And I talked about it all last year that I thought he deserved more ice time. I would like to see him get more ice time. I know he's on the 3rd penalty kill unit, but I wonder what will happen when Jimmy Vesey comes back. That's a significant part of Jimmy's game is being a penalty killer. So if he's in the lineup, I think he's going to kill penalties. So does Cooley then drop down to 7th in the rotation? I would like to see him on the power play. I would. I think he's the guy who should be the net front guy on the second power play. But I understand right now with Kakko, they want to give Kakko the opportunity. But I honestly think that the Rangers' best team has Will Cooley on the second power.
Yeah, Kakko and Cooley were both doing a lot of net front practice today. I think Kakko spent 95% of practice on Sunday in front of the net, working on tip-ins.
Yeah, something. You find a way to get something in, and then it's something gets unlocked, because obviously they think his ceiling is higher. That's why they're just force feeding him any opportunity to kind of get on a roll with Kakko. I had 2 goals one year and 6 the next, and scoring goals was never that hard if I had shots and chances. And that year, we went to the Cup final, but I had 6, and I was in a bad place mentally when I had a puck on my stick in a shooting area, and I'd never been like that before or after in my career. I couldn't figure it out. He's kind of, so I can relate to it, and he's doing all the right things. You just have to be patient. And speaking of patience, Reilly Smith has to be patient. Hang with me for a second and maybe see if this makes sense to you. But I looked at Vegas's game, and I look at Jack Eichel and Barbashev. It's a right shot center and a left winger who do a tremendous amount of work, shift by shift. And then Mark Stone, who's obviously, he has his money, he has his cup. He's smart enough to know when to be patient. He was the beneficiary of some plays, but for a lot of the game, he's not as involved. He's kind of over on the right wing. He's over there. He's got a right shot center. It's harder to get the puck when you're a right wing with a right shot center. So you be patient, learn from your line mates. I think pucks are going to squirt out to Reilly Smith like they did to Mark Stone in their first game. They all had 3 or 4 points. A lot of the work is done with their center and the left winger. If they can take a page out of that book, it was fun to watch that Vegas game. They won 8-4, but it was crazy. Eichel was insane. Mika's got to watch that. He's flying through the neutral zone, backing everybody up and opening up space. That's his job as a center. Mika can do that. He has done it in the past. He watches him takes a page out of Eichel's book. Now you got 3 lines. Match them up however you want, and they're laughing because I love that third line too. I thought it was going to be really interesting with matchups. I think they throw it. It's like another pitch a pitcher has. It's a different sort of look with different strengths. If it all kind of clicks how it looks like it could, it's still exciting to me. I think you stick with it.
Yeah, and we had one lineup change from game 1 to game 2. Johnny Brodzinski was in the season opener, and then Matt Rempe was in the home opener. I kind of see it, and I kind of don't. Just why Peter Laviolette wanted to do that, I'm not so sure. If the fact that I know that the whole last change always plays a factor in it, and especially when it comes to Rempe, because clearly he paid 3 minutes. Just over 3 minutes Saturday night. So that's pretty indicative of where he's at in terms of earning Peter Laviolette's trust. But obviously Brodzinski gives that fourth unit more of a scoring touch. Rempe makes it a more physical look. I'm just wondering your guys' thoughts on the change from game 1 to game 2, and if you think maybe it would have been better to stick with one and see how it looks for a couple games and then go to the other. Is it a veteran thing for Brodzinski? Is it a Rempe at home thing? How do you guys weigh that?
Well, I thought, and I could be wrong, I thought that Brodzinski got the start in game 1 because he outplayed Rempe throughout training camp. And I thought Edstrom did too. They were 2 of their better players in training camp. I thought Rempe had an okay training camp. And I thought for a coach who places so much emphasis on training camp and exhibition games and rookie games, honestly, I've said this before, but I've never been around a coach who in the middle of January, if you ask a question about a certain player, he'll start talking about, well, he was excellent in that rookie game that we had against the Flyers.
Had a great camp.
I'd never heard that before, honestly. Yeah. So I think he thought that they earned it. Now, I hope that they see their fourth line as Edstrom, Carrick, Rempe. I hope that that's their default fourth line until the players prove that they shouldn't be there. If it's going to be an in and out kind of thing, then I think Rempe should be in Hartford playing and learning. I don't see any value in having Matt Rempe here playing 4 minutes a night. I just don't. I don't see there's any value in having Edstrom here playing 4 minutes a night. So I hope the Rangers see their fourth line as Edstrom, Carrick, Rempe. If they don't, and again, VC is going to, at some point, VC is going to be back in the equation. And what will that mean to the fourth line? So there are decisions to make, but I hope it's not we can play Rempe at home. We can't play Rempe on the road. And, how is he going to learn, honestly? And again, if they're worried about the 2 points, they're worried about the 2 points. But I'm more worried about getting the extra 6 wins in June. Honestly, that's my focus. It is, and I can afford to do that because I have no responsibility. No one's going to come to me if they lose 4 in a row and say, "Larry, you're fired." So I get it.
Super easy in my office right now.
What's that?
I'm agreeing with you in my office because it's very because I'm in my office. I'm not at the Garden. I'm not at the practice ring.
Right.
I'm with you, and that's like if I'm on the other team and I'm looking at the lineup and the fourth line that you just said, Larry, I'm like, oh my God, this is not going to be a fun one. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Brodzinski. He's earned everything, and you want it to be a meritocracy. I just think it's hard for Matt Rempe to be Matt Rempe in preseason. Mm-hmm. It's going to turn into a sideshow, and that's you want to play, you want to get reps, you want to get shifts. He's been dying for shifts. He's been a great teammate, and I know it was one game, but when it's the only game so far of the year, it feels like an eternity. So you want to get different guys in, and you don't want to pipe guys for too long. Keep everybody kind of in the mix.
That's definitely Laviolette's philosophy.
Absolutely.
He's always,
and we said that last year several times,
exactly.
Right, to you guys.
Yeah.
So if he was good enough in camp to get a shot, that's fine. He probably took Brodzinski aside and say, listen, we're going to go with him tonight because we got to see him. And it's nothing he did. And that's it. I think Brodzinski knows where he stands in terms of, go get a couple goals. I mean, last year he got taken out after he was scoring. He was creating offense. They were getting points, assists. He'd come out. It's like, it's long-term, big picture stuff. So yeah, get him on the ice a little more if they're in the lineup. Get him reps in Hartford if they can't find the ice for him. And you got one extra forward right now.
Right.
You want 13, you're going to have 14. You got, but on a real team, like you have one too many, one extra bottom six maybe that you're kind of like, but you're one injury away from needing that guy. And they're all capable, good players.
Exactly.
Yeah, I had really liked Edstrom, Carrick, and Rempe in that second Devils game, even though, I mean, I know that they were playing against the Devils AHL team, but I felt like it made me think about what that identity could be like, what the identity of that fourth line has kind of started to become over the last year, and what it could be with those three guys. And it's a matter of if the Rangers want to lean into that, I think, or which I had asked Peter Laviolette about it, if it was a matter of the identity or the elements that he sees on that line. And he did say that he sees it more as an element thing, and wanting to, maybe have it look a little bit different and not as homogeneous, so to say, because I mean those two big guys, Sam Carrick in the middle, who can also mix it up and plays with such an edge. I feel like when they were playing with that sort of formation last season, it's a momentum changer. It's fun. The crowd feeds off of it. It injects something into the game.
And it adds, when you're getting a regular turn or a semi-regular turn as a fourth liner, it adds swagger to your game.
Yeah.
You can't have swagger if you're playing 2 shifts a period.
Yeah.
So I think it's
play.
important.
You can't play.
Yeah.
As
It's
a big
impossible.
man, you can't play.
Yeah. Right.
Think about, like, you step on the ice. The ice is more chewed up now. It's like you're not. People don't understand how big of an effect that can have on you, but when you're not getting any touches, and you're just watching everybody going by. They get into a zone and a rhythm, and you're ice cold. You can't play, but you got to figure out a way to play. But I mean, listen, it's 2 games in. We'll see. That was a wild one. I didn't like Gunther's power play goal. What are we doing there? He's standing right there. Where you go? Well, poor Will Cooley. He's like, I mean, he's right in front of my net. He's no way he's passing it. I have to go, and then it's bing bang. That was
Did you guys also catch during the fight sequence when Carrick and Edstrom started fighting? Gunther had Rempe in a hug like this, and Rempe shook him off, turned around, and basically went like this, and looked and saw who it was, and was like, "Oh no, I'm not." I was like, "No, I can't do that."
Respect.
That fight, the Edstrom's fight, actually was his first ever in all of hockey, going back to juniors.
Really?
Yeah. He's not a fighter, but that was his first. Of course, he said he's gotten some pointers from Mr. Matt Rempe in the stall next to him. But yeah, I mean,
summer tournaments when we were kids, we'd get, if you were up 3 or down 3 on a Sunday, right, the last day of the tournament. Since I was like 8, it was go time. Yeah, basically it was like helmet boxing.
I think times are changed. I think times have changed, Brian.
Not really. I was at a tournament recently.
Yeah, no, but he really held. I mean, he's a massive. He packs a punch, and with both those guys, with their reaches, I mean, you watch the fights in slow-mos, and the other guys' fists are stopping right here because the reach just
fighting
is
a
not,
redwood tree.
Yeah, I think it was Matt Martin who said that Matt Rempe had the longest reach he'd ever seen since the Dano Chara.
Char's got a reach.
Yeah, I mean, what is he, 6'9"? Which they're listing Matt Rempe as, by the way, now. But I think that's just a matter of rounding up because he's 6'8.5". But I'll double check that for you all next time.
One of the most enjoyable things ever to watch. One of the most enjoyable things ever to watch was Ryan Callahan going 1-on-1 with Dano Chara. It was great.
Wait, when was
Oh
that?
no, not in a fight. I mean,
Battling.
just playing, with Chara, Chara 6'9", Callie,
Love
trying to
Callie.
figure it out. It was just what a great matchup. Great matchup.
Captain
Big
Callie.
Z. Bully.
Alrighty. Well, that was a good recap episode. 2 games in, 80 to go. So thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for making the time, and we'll see you all next week.
Sounds good.
Awesome.